I'm going to start with this image. It's an image basically to share a story and a dream of this sort of young kid looking towards a community on water. And I think we've heard so much about water today. I'm not going to get into too much details about that. I think the dream, what's important is that the dream is shared not only by him, by me, by people from Singapore, people from Copenhagen, and all over the world, and in Amsterdam. We have started. We've started doing something about that dream. You know, we basically took action, and I'll get into the detail of that. But what we did essentially is that we planted a seed, and I like to call it a seed because it is a seed that actually addresses the issue of urbanization. It grows. We're hoping it can be cultivated into to create more. It addresses the issue of climate change because the seed floats. The seed uses renewable energy for its use. It harvests rainwater and it recycles waste. And uses some of the waste. Now we're looking at using that to produce food within this. And finally, it inserts itself within a very political context where it addresses issues of tenureship and legal conditions regarding within a community within a larger city. But I'll get back to that. My office is called NLE, and we're basically we're an architecture, design, and urbanism practice focused on developing cities and communities. And by developing cities, I actually mean we're interested in both the process, developing cities, and actually the regions, you know, the cities that are in development. And we're not an NGO or a charity organization, which a lot of people think we are, maybe perhaps because of our latest project. We're actually a business organization. We're for profit. However, we do have a very strong social and environmental consciousness, and that's what drives most of our work today. We're very fortunate to be in such a beautiful city. I love Amsterdam. I always say Amsterdam is such an amazing city. I'm partly in Amsterdam because it's just what it is. You know, I think one of the things I think is strong about Amsterdam is that it's a village. I think regardless of what we think, I mean, it's actually a village. You know, it's one of the however, it's a very cosmopolitan village. You can cycle, you know, it's left with everything that you would want in a very idyllic life. At the same time, it's very cosmopolitan, and I think there's something to appreciate about that when you're thinking about the development of cities. How do you create a compact city and you know, and make it work, make it have all the cultural, social benefits, and at the same time infuse it with water. I mean, water is such a. I mean, I actually thought that the water is such an important part of a recipe of a beautiful city. All the most beautiful cities that we know around the world are actually situated around water. Context a bit. This is, of course, the epitome of what we know as urbanization. You know, New York, a big city, and New York is, you know, has lots of people. It's so three-dimensional. It's developed really rapidly. At the same time, it is now experiencing one of the major issues that will be a challenge of our time. This is New York in last October 2012, where half of it was shut down. You see half of, you know, all the light there by the sandy storm. It's not a hurricane, I guess. And this is one of the first evidence of the impact of climate change. In 2010, I think 2011, I had the opportunity to be at an event called the Stad-Forum conference, or camp, basically, with 150, you know, people from all over the world, and we had a climate change skeptic, so-called. And he, at the time, what was interesting was that he didn't say that climate change was not happening. So that's a fact. Climate change is a given, is happening. So that wasn't the issue. He was just saying, well, what is the collateral damage, really? He did this analysis and said, maybe some parts of Asia, maybe some parts of Africa, they'll take the hit. And yeah, that's what it is, and it is what it is. And shortly after that, New York took the hit. So for the first time, I think that the issue of climate change became very apparent to the sort of first world countries. At the same time, this is an event, July 10th. It was interesting to hear the presenter from Copenhagen saying on July 2nd, I think, that they also had this cloud burst. But July 10th, 2011, there was a major flood in Lagos, and everywhere was completely just inundated with water. What you see here is a very interesting image for me, because you see on the left here, people are like struggling to get out of water, into the water, but on that side, there's still these guys actually trying to conquer it, almost as though they're, they have a James Bond type of car. I mean, it shows the kind of, a strength of our people in Africa. But we also found this evidence where people are actually beginning to adapt to it, getting very excited about the situation. Now, this is, for me, a very important image because it shows the resilience and adaptability of the African and the people that within the same day, they have completely switched the mindset and they're like, yes, this is it, we're going for it. Now, our work, like I said, is situated around understanding people's social, cultural, and looking within to find solutions. And these kinds of qualities have been very important for us moving forward. Urbanization trends, as we know, actually, you may not know, but Africa is really one of the most urbanizing regions in the world, with a large section of it being populated. Now, what we also, of course, the major cities like Lagos are taking the hit. Now, Lagos, I'll get back to it in a bit, but you see the distribution of urbanization trends. So what we did was, on July 10th, I was right in Lagos when this flooding happened, and actually it just struck me that this, the issue that we're dealing with might be a result of, not just a one-time occurrence, but perhaps climate change. So we began doing this research, and we looked into the climate change risk. And of course, although Africa is said to be the least responsible for climate change, it is actually the most affected by it, with a large portion of it within the high to extreme high risk zones, which means that all the edges, all the dark areas that you see there are within the risk. So we launched a research called the African Water Cities Project, where we started looking into different parameters, the GDP growth, urbanized areas, population growth, migration patterns in Africa, and what we sort of synthesized that information. And what you see here is like a ranking of different cities based on all of these parameters. And we identified a number of cities that are most important. But what's happening is that there are two conditions happening. There is the economic growth and urbanization along the periphery, as you see here in most of the African cities. And then there is, so there's also people migrating from the middle section because there's drought, so they're moving towards the periphery. At the same time, there is climate change. There are areas, these coastal areas are being affected by climate change. So two conditions are coming together. People are migrating, urbanization, and climate change. So African Water Cities Project is a research project to sort of bridge the gap between and understand the relationship and the context that these kinds of things are happening. So we identified from that analysis the called top 20 African water cities. These are cities that we need to pay attention to. These are cities that we want to understand the local and the city condition and the community condition, and I'll get back to that in a second. Lagos is one of such cities. As you can see on the map, it's due to its population growth and economic growth and climate change risk. It's of course topical, and we started in Lagos. Of course, Lagos, it's actually quite a beautiful city. Of course, it's got a lot of challenges, and this is one of the challenges, like I explained to you, urbanization patterns. It's got 16 million people, basically equivalent to the size of the entire Netherlands, and it is still growing. If you look at that, it's got 16 million people. At the same time, it is 40 times smaller than the entire Netherlands. So if if the Netherlands is the densest country in the world, then if you then multiply that by 40, you can imagine the kind of situation we're having in Lagos as a city. So, like I said, the population is growing rapidly, and the geographical nature of Lagos is such that it's sort of 30% of it is covered by water. I just heard that 24% of Amsterdam is covered by water. So for me, water becomes an asset. If you've got 30% of your geographical area as water, then you better think about what you're going to do with it, because that's a huge part of your community. And what you see around sort of the red edges, that's where the city actually exists, and it's growing towards the east and west and towards sort of this pinch point here, where there's a proposal for a bridge that would connect the entire city. And we have given a proposal for that called the 4th Mainland Bridge. And I think that would establish a ring around the city, which incidentally would make the heart of Lagos water. So, basically the city needs to think about the opportunities for making its heart actually function as a water settlement. But within that heart is a community. The community is called Makoko. It has over, it's said to have 100,000 people. We don't know for sure, but it definitely has thousands of people. It's a community that lives on fishing and sawing industry. It's right in the heart of the city, with all of these houses, these are all on, it's basically what you would define technically as a slum. Now, a lot of people see it as a slum. I got the opportunity, I was very curious driving over this bridge, like most people have done in many years, and I said, okay, I'm going to visit this place and see what's going on here. And I did, and I discovered, so, I was both shocked by what I saw, like, wow, people actually live here? Like, this is thousands and thousands of people living here. How have they managed to build so much out of so little, So Makoko is a community on water, and it's been there for over 100 years, it's said. It's got no roads, no land, no modern infrastructure. And for me, it is almost, it's a model for thinking about how coastal African cities can develop. So when you look at Amsterdam, for instance, as a category, what I'll call a category 1 water city, you can drive on it, you can walk on it, you can take a bicycle, you've got a canal. So it's got, that's category 1. Venice, I would say, is a category 2 city, a water city, where you actually can't drive in Venice, you cannot, you can literally just either walk or be on a boat. And Makoko is category 3. Nothing. You can only, the only infrastructure that exists in Makoko is water. So you're either on your house, on a boat, or in water. So it's something to learn from. Now, that is a picture of life in Makoko. That's how people live. This is a home in Makoko. This is someone, it may look like a shack to you or like a slum, but this gentleman in red there has almost everything he needs, incidentally. You see, he's got like 5 kids there. in the corner. You may not, just pay attention very carefully. 5 kids. He's got a front porch. That's his main house. This is a kitchen where he cooks. He gets his logs of wood and he cooks there. And that's his bathroom there. It's open to the air, fresh air, and then everything goes into water, unfortunately. He's got a boat that moves himself and his family around. So that's, it's a complete ecosystem. So for me, it was how do you learn how do you live, from a minimum, from the absolute minimum. This is a minimum dwelling on water. So it's a source of inspiration, and we began to sort of work together. We looked at it. They have an industry, they have a community, agriculture. They create this sort of habitat where they put plants in water and create a habitat for fish and harvest them. Transportation is low energy, no gas. They've got social, very active social life, shopping, services. That's a barbering salon there on water. The kids play. There's a huge sense of adventure in the place. It's such a vibrant place. We looked into the material, the physical components, very lightweight construction. So we learned, there was a lot to learn from this environment. At the same time, it was also very beautiful. Now, we're not trying to fetishize a slum condition, but I'll tell you, they also have huge challenges. So we got some funding from a green technology foundation where we produced a research report for this particular community. The final output is the building, which I call the seed, which is called Makoko Floating School. We actually built it. So this is a real image of a floating school for the community. And I'll tell you how that happened. The school sits on water right in the lagoon heart of Lagos, at the edge of the community. So when I visited the community for the first time, I said, how can I help? What can I do? I would love to learn and give back. And they said, well, we have a school, and this, we've got 200 kids going to the school, but the school is built on reclaimed land, in a patch of reclaimed land on water. And every now and then that the school suffers from flooding, like most of the houses these days, that the level of water is increasing. I said, okay, well, I will try to see what I can do to improve this condition. And that's how we began a relationship with the community. The first thing I did was actually to learn from them. How do you build? How do you, I spoke with the local experts that had built all those houses, looking at the material that they worked with. We did a lot of documentation. We also took advantage of our relationship with Netherlands and the expertise in houseboats and building and things, and created, and worked out a solution that was, first of all, using the local technology, taking account the issue of climate change and increase in rainfall, which meant that the houses are at risk. And now we now needed to solve the problem of putting the building on a fixed position in water by creating a flotation device. And that flotation device, of course, meant that whether the water level rises or falls, the building can always adapt to it. So it was a hybrid, innovative solution of both local and global technology. The building is a triangle that's a pyramid, basically, that sits on these recycled plastic barrels. We've done a lot of calculations on that. These are sort of just diagrams showing the sort of closed loop. So in terms of trying to get the building to float, we looked at different solutions and looked at it from availability, technology, construction time, durability, blah, blah, blah. Had sort of a matrix, decided and settled for using, of course, a floating building is not like new technology. You can build it on a steel barge, you can still build it on concrete. But we wanted to do something that was both local and could be built by the local community. And we settled, while we're looking for solutions, we actually realized the solution was right there. The kids are right there floating on plastic barrels already. And we realized that these plastic barrels were all over the city, and that was the solution. We built the first prototype, and the kids jumped on it as though they were much more at home than we ever imagined. And we strapped 16 of those into a platform of 100 square meters and built a structure, which is a triangle because, you know, it's best for stability and low center of gravity. The building, of course, can be used as a school, but it's a structure that can be filled in different forms, a house, a theater, anything. It's scalable in different scales, and we're looking at multiplying that from a school to a fish farm, a market, anything, a home. The community has actually even been put on the monopoly, a new Lagos monopoly as a real estate. It's been a space for arts and crafts. There's been tourism, sort of increase of interest in the project. So like I said, the African Water Cities project is about looking into different African cities and looking at these. And what's interesting is that many African cities are by the coast. Dakar, Abidjan, Luanda, Dar es Salaam, you know, Accra, it goes on and on. At the same time, we also see these communities that are within or around them, like Gambia, you know, Fadiot in Senegal, these little communities. So there are hundreds of Makokos all over Africa and many places. How do we develop them? How do we learn to live with water, learning from them as opposed to sort of fighting against them? What's interesting, of course, is that, you know, Venice, the early settlers of Venice are called Incolai Lacune, which literally means the lagoon dwellers. So no different. Many years ago were they from people of Makoko, and today Venice is what it is. I'll just go very quickly. And of course, we know Amsterdam has developed this culture into a beautiful thing. And we've started with Makoko, and we hope that the dream of this kid one day would start, that we've been able to sort of achieve this first thing, and sometime tomorrow develop this into a community, a new sustainable model for a coastal African water city. Thank you very much.